Just 1 minute.
Let me close this Discord stuff, man. It's loud.
I hear it. Did you? Or is that
Yeah.
me?
No,
It be
I don't
me.
know. It could be you too.
It could be me.
Oh,
It be going down in the Discord I'm in, but never going down in my own. I feel
I
like we get good on one conversation and we hit it up and then it's silence.
in
And then
the
we hit
silence.
it up and
It's the same in
silence.
mine too. It's the same in mine.
Yeah. But the other ones, like I'm in the Fantasy series one, and I feel like Mugs be talking all day.
What series,
I'm
hon?
loquacious.
Oh, my bad. That's me.
Okay.
That was
Loquacious.
me this time.
Yeah.
Hey y'all, you know it always takes a second for the thing to line up. Not I call it the thing.
You hanging out with me too much.
Oh yeah. Hey
I do the
y'all.
same thing a
Goodness
lot of things.
gracious. Thingy thingamabob thingamajigger.
Bobby?
Hi y'all. Welcome to another realm of comics discussion. We had a lot of fun doing the one that we did last month where we talked about Bitterroot volumes 1 through 3 and
Dude.
Bitterroot. And tonight we are talking about Persepolis, the complete Persepolis. So it's marketed or it's sold in different ways. I know I've read both the complete Persepolis and then I've also read it separated, the one that's been separated into like 2 parts, I believe. So, before we get started talking about this, what else have y'all been reading? Bree, what are you currently reading?
The most, I'm trying to read 20% for 5 days every day of the love songs of W.E.B.
W.E.B.
Du
the
Bois.
boy. Mm-hmm.
Did I hit that 20 mark today? No. Will I? Probably
Or
not. So
not.
many things happened today and it just wasn't today. And that's
Mm-hmm. That's okay. It
I hit
happens.
4%. I added an additional 4%, but I don't know if I'm
Yeah,
gonna hit that other seven because that other seven is like 3, 4 hours, So
that's a lot.
yeah. What was I saying? I'm also reading The Maidens, Once Ghosted, Twice Shy,
Okay, let's
um,
go.
and Arusha and the End of Time. And then you don't even want to know what my hoopla looks like. That's embarrassing. It's a lot of comics out here in the streets. So
Not I got you. Not I got you hooked.
it's a lot. It's a lot. So yeah, so I got a lot of comics I
Mm.
want to try to get through.
A little plug too, y'all. We'll be back on my channel again tomorrow night to talk about Saga Volume
Oh,
9 and issue 55, which dropped
did
today.
you see it? Let me look.
Yeah, I put it on my Instagram stories this morning. I was like, it's officially on my Kindle.
Is it on
I'm
your
about to be
Kindle?
depressed.
Sorry, I just got a little weird. I was like,
Yeah.
ah.
Um so I am listening to, which I'm probably going to try to finish this tonight. I am listening to Girl Giant and the Monkey King.
Not the monkey kink.
Monkey King.
I
King.
was
It's middle
like,
grade.
wow.
Not kink.
I was like,
King.
wow.
King. By Van Huang. And I'm about 90% into that one, which is why I feel like I'm going to finish that one tonight because I literally have maybe like 35 minutes of that one left. And then I have 3 books that I need to finish. Well, actually, more like 4. No, it's only 3 that I need to finish before the first of the month, and that's um I can't even remember the name of the daggone books. That's so sad. One of them is the new Cameron Battle book. Um,
Ooh.
which is middle grade fantasy. Just Right Jillian, which is kind of like a lower middle grade contemporary. And I am still trying to finish up Love Boat Reunion, which is the sequel to Love Boat Taipei,
Mhm.
which everyone knows I've read Love Boat Taipei like 3 times. So, got a lot going on in terms of reading, of course. Let's see what I'm super behind in reviews. I always get caught up and then I fall behind again. Saga Volume 2. I read The Kindred by Alicia Dow. It was not my favorite. Blood and Honey. Okay. Undertakers by Nicole Glover. Issue 55 of Saga. I can't wait to have that talk tomorrow. I feel like that's going to be an emotional conversation.
That's
Winterborn
like
Home for
my next card.
Vengeance and Valor, and just started My Dark Vanessa. I'm still going back and forth about reading My Dark Vanessa, to be honest.
I don't think I will. If I do read it, I'm gonna read
Mhm.
it with you, and we need to talk about each chapter. So unless it's gonna be like that, I'm not reading
Yeah, I'm so hesitant to read that, to be honest.
it.
Hi, Crystal.
Hello.
Pages and Co. I've heard of that. Um, I haven't picked it up yet, but I've heard of it. Book Corners, Immortals After Dark series by Cresley Cole. The new one just came out, right? Either yesterday or today, one of the two.
I don't know.
Lesson in Blackmail. Okay, you finished the Sookie Stackhouse book. Good. Seven Kirsten Glass Sword. I see everybody's reading a little bit of everything right about now. I hope y'all finish your you finish your month out strong. Okay. Let's see. I mean, if we were villains, see that fit Amari and the Night Brothers. Because of that, yeah, yeah. I just feel like it's going to be extremely triggering. Word to Radiance, Gideon the Ninth, and various graphic. Monstrous is so good. Brie, we need to consider maybe putting Monstrous on our list
Like
because
where?
we
Like next year? I mean, how long do
next.
you want this to run?
I mean, if you really ask me that question, it's kind of like until we are not doing YouTube anymore, and even then
Yeah,
we can transfer it to a completely different platform.
text
But
message.
like I mean, so I don't want it to just be this year and then we don't do it anymore.
Oh, okay. I'm down for that. We can
Because I
have
feel like
monsters.
people are enjoying it and it's introducing people to like a lot of comics and graphic novels that maybe they wouldn't have been exposed to before, or it's getting people back into reading comics and graphic novels. I just
Turn- Turning baby comic and graphic novel readers into medium status. I like to think I'm coming up. I'm just gonna say
yeah,
I like
yeah,
to think I'm moving a little past novice.
you're moving past
A
novice.
little
Yeah,
past.
I really do think, excuse me, y'all. It's been a long day. I really do think that this is something that we'll take beyond this year. But we've pretty much got our TBR set until like November of this year. So we'll figure out next year's TBR. Well, the rest like December of this year and then into next year later on. All right. So enough of all of that. Let's talk Persepolis.
Yeah.
What was everybody's rating?
5.
5, easy. It's like my
Easy.
fourth time reading it. 5 stars. While y'all are putting your ratings in the comments, um, a little backstory
Also,
for me. I was introduced to Persepolis my freshman year of college. It was the freshman read. So everybody that came in fall of 2009, all of us were supposed to read Persepolis for our University 101 courses. And that was my first time ever reading a nonfiction graphic memoir, and I fell in love with it. Um,
Maria, we're with you. 10 out of 5.
I loved it. and I have read it every couple of years, every few years. I have seen the movie multiple times. If y'all are in the chat now, if you're not a part of the Discord, I would suggest being a part of Discord. We are supposed to be doing a watch of the actual film itself. I got to figure out where I can stream it from, and we'll figure out a date and time. But the group as a whole that's in Discord, said that they wanted to do a group watch of it, so we probably will. All right, so
Um, I did want to say something for um, Sophia Gordon. So you gave it 4 stars, and you said the ending is rush.
mhm.
My rebuttal to that,
Already.
my rebuttal, and it's not like a bad rebuttal. So for me, I felt like the whole story is traumatic. Most of it, a good part of it is traumatic. And I know I'm putting on my therapist lens here, but as reading this, I kept thinking of like how much work and vulnerability it took her to write this story. And to talk specifically about her uncle, like what happened to her, all different types of things.
Mhm,
So the ending, I too felt like it was rushed, but I also felt like maybe she was just done with her story and that was just it. Like that was all we were going to get, and that's just how it's going to have to be. And like whatever else stories that she holds, she's going to be the keeper of those. And like
mhm,
I respect that she's the keeper of those because she gave us so much of herself that I
mhm,
felt like however she ended it is how she ended it. Like that's just where it's at. Even though your girl me was like, you could have gave us a little more, but I was like, you did it.
mhm.
You did your thing, and we're here for it. So that's how I viewed it. So I agree, and I'm just telling you how I understood it.
Yeah, the ending does feel, um it does feel rushed because it's I for me, I don't think it's more for me, it wasn't a rush feeling. It was a abrupt ending. And I think because she's given so much of like Bree said, of herself, that you you want more of what happens. And I think you want more of what happens in the sense that her life has been so readily filled with trauma and traumatic experiences, and um you want a positive ending for her, and you don't really get that, to
Yeah,
be honest with you. You want that icing on the cake, like, this woman has been through so much, her family, her country has been through so much, that you want that perfect ending, but there is no perfect ending to that. There is no happy ending.
yeah,
And I think that was intentional to show that this is just
yeah.
her
It is. Yeah,
her small part of the story, because there is no resolution for what's been happening in Iran. Like, that, it's still, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's stuff is still going on to this day. So it would almost be a sense of false comfort for her to have given us a perfect happy ending. That's the way that I read it.
yeah.
That is reality.
I mean, however we conceptualize it is valid. I just for me, the way it ended, I was like, oh man, I wanted more. And then I was like, how can you expect more of someone who have given you so much?
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, ooh. Because I kept the whole time I was reading, I kept thinking, like, man, I don't know if I'd have been able to write. Because even though it's a graphic novel, I just want y'all to know how detailed this was. Like, people think that graphic novels, because there's pictures in it, that there's not like story in it. It was the facial expressions. It was just done in such a beautiful way that I'm just like, you should have gotten every award known to man because like how do you come back from this? Like
She
this
has
is
another
like
she has another one too, y'all, if you're interested in just, if you want more from her. She has another one that I've read too called Embroideries, and that one is a little bit more on the lighthearted side.
mm,
But I would recommend checking that one out. But of course, Persepolis is the one that she is most recognized for.
yeah.
Um, So I definitely gave it 5 stars. I don't think I would ever give it anything less than 5 stars, no matter how many times I read it. But we're not gonna hold y'all. We're gonna try to keep this at an hour so we can kind of take this like piece by piece. So
Right.
um, in the beginning, we're kind of introduced to just her life in general, um, her family members, how they live. I think she's just. I need to get my copy of the book because I annotated my copy.
I did too. Amen.
Yeah, Bree. Um, yeah. So this is my copy. It's my copy.
Not your flags.
Yeah.
Where's Jesse when we
Well, I
did?
know, right? Talking about how crazy my flies look. Um. Okay. We can take this piece by piece by piece.
But I feel like in the beginning of this book, I was like, wow, we're getting a strong person because she said, I'm gonna be a prophet, period.
Yes,
And
period. In the beginning,
people are like,
which
what? She's
but
like,
you
I'm gonna be a prophet, maybe even Fidel Castro. I said,
but I think that it was important for her to showcase that because we're seeing the naivety of a child, and she loses all of that.
mm-hmm.
It's not in the same way that I think some kids no longer are naive to certain things. It was stripped from her, which is super unfortunate. But I don't know how many of y'all were able to read the introduction that she wrote in 2002. I would say 2012. Um, One line that stood out to me in the introductions where she said, I believe that an entire nation should not be judged by the wrongdoings of a few um, extremists. I also don't want those Iranians who lost their lives in prisons defending freedom, who died in the war against Iraq, who suffered under various repressive regimes, or who were forced to leave their families and flee their homeland to be forgotten. One can forgive, but one should never forget. And particularly that line in which she says, I believe that an entire nation should not be judged by the wrongdoings of a few extremists is very, very, very important in the context of this entire freaking book. Because the Western perspective of Iran is so twisted. And her mother makes a
Oh,
comment about
twisted.
that at the end, where they didn't know who to believe, whether it was their own government painting them, giving them lies, or it was the Western world who had a certain level of disdain for Iran giving them lies. Like it's amazing. And then the whole discussion about imperialism and the role that the Western world played in the demise of this country.
And how knowledgeable they were of that. I'm just always in awe about how other
Mhm.
countries talk about worldly issues that seem to be so much different in the way in which we as Americans typically do it.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. I
So
mean,
many truths.
it's a lot. There are a lot of truths, and I think probably one of the things that I enjoy most about this is the historical part of it. And it does take, for me, it took me a couple of reads to really grasp the historical part where we're looking at, her grandfather was in power, and then you have the British and the Russians come in and they see oil. And
Hmm.
it makes you really think about the involvement of world powers like, Great Britain and the US sticking their hands into the Middle East for their own benefit and really causing such a breakdown of an entire nation of people because you have someone who's then put into power. His son takes over. He's completely out of control.
Out of control.
Out of control. Then he loses power. And then you have this extremist group now take over, and
Yeah.
it's worse than it was before. But it was kind
And
of
they're
interesting that we
pushing
see
their propaganda so heavily
exactly so
that it's
happily
suffocating and killing folks.
But you know what's interesting is that she brings all of that because when I was reading it, I was like, man, the Western world ain't shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, dang, like, I mean, you stuck your hands and caused so many issues for money in your pocket. The
Mm.
greed alone, you were willing to put a whole country in harm's way for greed. But I like that at the end when she met that doctor, what's his face? I have to find his name,
Was
y'all.
it the doctor guy when she was falling apart and her dad was like, "Here is some literature," and then she went to these parties and got to talk to him while her marriage was dissolving?
Ye-
That guy?
Yeah, that guy where he says, because someone said it's the English and the Americans' fault. They're the ones who disposed him by organizing the coup d'etat in 1953. And
What
he said,
page is this?
this is 327. But then the doctor says, maybe, but what did we do to stop them? Outsiders would never have been able to achieve their ends without certain Iranian traitors. If we want to reconstruct this country, we have to begin by admitting our own misdeeds.
Yeah.
And that within itself, I felt like it just brought everything so full circle because in his eyes, and it is not my lived experience, so I don't know, but it's interesting to see in his perspective, like, yes, the West did have a role in this, but what did we do to stop it from happening? And
Mhm.
it made me think about in the beginning how people who were a part of the revolution getting rid of the Shah, like, or were with the Shah, like that they were so about following the rule of the Shah. As soon as he was disposed, then it was like, oh yeah, what was the one woman who said his wife got shot in her cheek, and she was like, the uh her mother was like, no, that woman's had that hideous mark on her face since before. Like, how people um change themselves in order to fit what was popular in the moment. But then I also felt like part of that was a survival instinct.
A
You
lot
did
of
what you
it
had to
is
do was
that.
to survive. Yeah, I don't know about y'all, but Persepolis is one of those things where it's so crazily, it's so complex, and it
Yeah.
reiterates the idea that graphic novels can provide so much room for discussion than what people assume or think. I mean,
Yeah.
Bitterroot was like that too.
Beirut has
Bitterroot
given
was the
us
same way. Yeah, Bitterroot was the same way.
Beirut owes us nothing, and I need volume 4 to drop. Or did it just drop?
No, that was Something is Killing the Children, Volume 4 dropped.
Uh, but what am I trying to say? I also felt like I needed this story because there was
Mhm,
things about the Iranian revolution that I
mhm,
didn't have that personal touch. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Like currently I'm trying to educate myself as best as I can of what's happening to Palestinian people. And
mhm,
I feel like I'm reading all these novels and things that people are, recommending that I'm reading. But it's different when I talk to my friends who are Palestinian and
mhm,
like they tell me about their lives there or their lives here and compared to their lives there and like what's happening and all these different things. So I think sometimes you not that you need a personal a touch, but sometimes
mhm,
there's a personal touch that you can hear that makes things just more palatable. Like I think if I never lived in Ukraine, I
mhm,
wouldn't feel no way. I think I don't know. I'm trying to get what I'm saying. I think if I didn't live in Ukraine, I wouldn't feel a type of way that I feel right now about what's happening over there.
mhm,
Because it's like out of sight, out of mind. Like who talks about Ukraine? You know what I
mhm,
mean? Who talks really about Palestinian? I felt Palestine because I feel like the news is not doing what it needs to do. So I
mhm,
just feel like it's just there's so many levels of what a personal touch can do in order to get you to have a broader understanding of this
mhm.
story. And I just, man, I feel for her. This had to be very traumatizing writing.
Oh, it had to be. There's and then I think probably the part that I connected to most is kind of her loss of identity. She went through that phase of not knowing, like, who am I, when she, especially when her parents sent her to Austria. And I had made a note, I had flagged one section when she was dating that guy. And the mother was basically saying, like, she had to get out, like, get her out of my house. And I said, how awful must it be to not only feel oppressed in your own country, but to go somewhere where you have newfound freedom only to face discrimination. You don't fit in enough. And she had made a comment in one of the things where she said, she was too Iranian for the Western world and too Western for the Iranian world. Like, she didn't know where she fit in, and she felt like she had no purpose. And I know I mean, during some of her most formative years as a teenager, she was living by herself. And there were points, and when she was in Austria, I forgot that she was only 14, 15 years old.
There was, yeah, there was
Yeah, I
forgot that she
forgot.
was a baby.
She
That's
was a
amazing.
baby, and I forgot about that because I was thinking about, honestly, it didn't click until the boyfriend that she had in Austria, she caught him cheating on her, and she had said, in one panel, she was talking about turning 18. And then it clicked, and I was like, oh gosh, yeah, she's only been here for 4 years. And all this stuff that she was going through with the partying, drinking, doing drugs, basically getting strung out. We're talking like 15, 16 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also feel like there's so many times I cheered for her in this
Yeah.
book, and there are so many times that I wanted to literally fight motherfuckers for her. Like, that
Yeah.
boyfriend could have got these hands. Like, she caught you cheating, and you had the audacity to use foul language towards her.
Yeah.
And then the nun who tried to say Iranians don't have education, which just like blew my mind.
That comeback, that clapback was like, and
Oh,
everyone knows that you were all former prostitutes.
oh, I
I said
fell. I fell out
clapback,
of my chair. I said,
clapback, and you deserved
of the
every single one of
century,
them.
of the century.
Yeah.
And when she was in Iran, uh, or Iran, how do you say it
I
correctly?
used to say you're on.
Iran, when she was in Iran, I'm still saying it with some accent of something. But when she was there and she was like, I'm trying to remember, it was the nun trying to take her jewelry because she had like a bracelet of something on, and they were like,
Mhm.
"You can't wear this." Iran, thank you, Ulysses. So when she was saying that, I was like, "Oh damn, it's about to go down," because she had her gang. She had her gang of girls with her, and then she was like, "All the gold you take for us, y'all probably peddling some kind of business here or something." Like, she went on.
Exactly.
I said, this girl is really out here living her best. And the fact that her parents were like, live it.
Yeah. Her parents,
Come for those sisters. Come for them guardians. Come for
exactly.
them.
Exactly. But I like how supportive her parents were, and I know that it could not have been an easy decision. I think about it in terms of being a parent myself, to send your child not just to like a friend's house, but to another country,
Austria.
miles and miles and miles away at 14 years old, to protect her from what they were experiencing, just war and war and war. I just like, I don't know how. I mean, I get how, because if that means your child gets a better life, or you're able to save them from the violence that's around them, I'm sure there are a lot of parents that would make that sacrifice. But to cope with that sacrifice, I can't imagine how her parents must have felt for 4 years.
Me either. Me and I also, one of the biggest parts of the book is, for me, like, the stars is the
Mhm.
grandma and the dad. And like mainly because I felt like the dad is like, "Look, I'm trying to teach you how to be a critical thinker, your own
Mhm,
mind." Like,
mhm,
every time she said something, he questioned it. He asked her, "Where did you get that information? Who
mhm.
told you that? Let's have a discussion about it." Even her uncle, who was sadly killed, um,
Anush
like, what was his name?
Anush, I
Anush?
think?
Yeah, Anush. Like, it was just like she was constantly being questioned about her thoughts and
Mhm,
also like encouraged to, seek out literature. He got her books, like just making sure that she understood the words and the concepts that she was saying and held
mhm.
true. Um, I also I mean, I didn't love this part, but I love the grandma's response when she kind of blamed this random
Oh, the
guy
random guy? Yeah,
and he got
yeah,
taken away by the, guardians,
yeah.
and, she told her boyfriend, and he seemed to be upset at first, but then started laughing,
Laughing.
and she told her grandma, and her grandma was pissed, and I just loved how her grandma set up that all those panels, all those scenes, and I just felt like at those points when she said, "And then I vowed there to never, let my grandma be disappointed in me again."
Yeah,
Oh, that almost took me out.
yeah, I mean, that definitely her grandmother was that constant in the back of her voice about that having dignity, and it always came back at some point, even when she was in Austria and she was ashamed, she lied at that party and she said she was French and she wasn't from Iran.
Yeah,
And then she overheard those other
what
group
they
of
were saying,
girls, yeah, what
yeah.
they were saying, and then it clicked, like, I need to be proud that I'm from Iran, I've
Mhm.
disconnected myself so much from it that I don't know who I am, but like her grandmother said, you have to have that sense of dignity about you. You have to be authentic. That's the only way. And for her grandmother kept saying that over and over again, and it kept coming back full circle, um which was super important, I think, in the context of this entire book. But what I did like about this is that, don't get me wrong, this book was it's a heavy read. Is an extremely heavy read, but there were some moments in which she tried to lighten it up with some humor. Like she tried to. I chuckled a couple of times in some situations where, even when she had to take the exam, the verbal exam,
Yeah.
like the religious part, and the guy was like, basically, do you pray in Arabic?
And
No.
she's like, "Nah,
No.
I'm saying English," or something like that.
Do you believe, like, did you wear the veil when you were in Austria? No. Like, absolutely not. I just felt like she always came back to that point of realize the challenging, and it was dangerous of her to do so, but she constantly challenged
I
authority.
know. Even
Even
with
when
her red shoes.
but even too, one that was, because I think towards the end of the book, when she goes back to Iran, you get to see like the craziness. I don't want to say that word. The wild things that were happening, how the picking and the choosing of what was considered to be unlawful, what was indecent or what was inappropriate. Because even when she would, she got into the school and the guy came and was telling them this is how you live a pure life or a moral life, and young women, you need to cover your heads, don't let the hair stick out, you don't need to wear makeup, you need to,
High heels
the
about to
wide
change their
the
outfit.
yeah, the wide pants, you need to stop wearing them. And she was just like, I mean,
Men are out here
honestly,
with their balls out. We can
ba
see everything.
basically, that's what she was saying. She said, "These men basically have on tighter pants and tighter clothes than me, and I, as a woman, am supposed to not be affected by that. You're telling me that I can't wear my pants as wide, but you want me to wear pants that show my figure more? Like, basically, make it make sense, because it doesn't make sense at all." And that was the whole point of it, is that it was so extreme, and the little things that they would do to be rebellious became dangerous. And it was one page that I liked. It was a dichotomy of the panels where she was explaining how you had it was a drawing of the women, what
Oh
they
yeah, I know
appeared
what
on
you're
the
talking about. Let me find
yeah,
it. I know
what they
exactly
appeared
what
to
you're
be on
talking
the outside, and then who they really were when they were inside their homes. And it made them schizophrenic because they had to live two split. I mean, it was a split life that they were living. It was somewhere towards the end, and I thought that panel work was really really nice in terms of how you would think that I would tab something like that.
I tabbed it, but I can't find it. By a side note, but also relevant to like her humor, what we just talked about on page 301 when the Guardians was telling her to stop, and she was just running, and they were like, "Lady with the blue coat," and she
Oh
was just
yeah.
running, and then they were like, "Yes," they were like, "Ma'am, why are you running? She's like, "I'm very late. I was running to catch my bus." The guy goes, "Yes, but when you run, your behind makes movements that are, how do you say, obscene." She said, "Well, don't look at my ass."
And she said I screamed so loud they didn't even arrest me. But I mean, but it shows that like you get to a point
Yeah.
where it's just like none of this even makes sense. Like it doesn't make sense for you to tell me not to run because the way my ass is shaking is disturbing you. Well, then stop looking at it. Like, don't look. If it's disturbing you that much, then don't look at my backside. It's as simple as 1, 2, 3. But it's it's true. I also liked in that panel that we're talking about, y'all, is on page 305, and this is what it was, where
Literally a couple pages.
she was talking about how they lived when they were outside and then how they lived when they were inside. And the last line that she says is this disparity made us schizophrenic because they had to live two different lives. They were polar opposites. And I mean, jeez, I can't imagine how stressful that was. But she also was mindful to include that there were times when women were rebelling but still fed into the ideology of the state. Like when she was in class and she was talking about the fact that
She even said that.
yeah, she had sex. And they were asking like, have you had sex? And she said yes. And they said, well, how is it? She said, sometimes it's not pleasurable. And they're like, well, you've had multiple experiences. And she said yes. And then the one woman was like, oh, what's the difference between you and a prostitute?
Oh
And at
yes,
that
I remember this scene.
Yeah, and
I
she was like,
remember
at
this
that point,
scene.
she realized that although some of them had these small acts of rebellion, even those who wore makeup had strands of their hair outside of their head coverings, um, they still they still subconsciously were feeding into
That's so true.
into the state, into what the state was thinking. Although, I mean, I think too she did give them some grace in some ways, especially when she was talking about it in terms of her friends who were super like into makeup and stuff like. And she said, they needed that. She had spent. I'll find it
Yeah.
because it was. She felt like she had nothing in common with them anymore,
Yeah. I
and
remember that was right after she came back from
that was
Austria,
yeah,
right?
that was right after she came back from Austria.
Mhm. I
Yeah.
also felt like there's on 302 put me in deep thought. Like I just couldn't leave it. Like when she said, well, it says, the regime had understood that one person leaving her house while asking herself, are my trousers long enough? Is my veil in place? Are they going to whip me? Can my makeup be seen? No longer asks herself, where is my freedom of thought? Where is my freedom of speech? My life? is my life is it my life is it livable? What's going on in the political prisons? And I was just like, damn, you're more concerned about what's going on, your veil, your trousers, your safety, and you can't even ask yourself critical questions because you're so busy thinking about how your womanliness can be triggered.
Be arrested. Yep.
And
That is sad. You can't, like, yeah, where's my freedom of thought? Where's my freedom of speech? But I don't even have the capacity to think about those things because I'm too worried about how I look may get me arrested today.
yeah. Oh, I'm just saying, there's
Oh,
um
it's on 259 where she
259.
said she was struggling with how um why they were even friends in the first place because she saw them and she said they looked very westernized like the women on TV shows, and she said she had a hard time remembering what had brought them together before. She said a
Yeah,
part of me understood them when something is forbidden, it takes on a disproportionate importance. Much later, I learned that making themselves up and wanting to follow Western ways was an act of resistance on their part. Nevertheless, I felt terribly alone. So
hmm,
it's that thing where I think because she had experienced the Western world firsthand,
right.
she struggled with their desire and need to want to emulate it because
Hmm.
she had experienced it firsthand, but she hadn't been denied those things.
Hmm.
So because they had been denied those things, they were fascinated by it. And I get that. It's kind of hard when you experience things, I think, outside of people that you were once close to, when you go through certain things and those people may not have the same lived experience as you. Sometimes I think it gets kind of hard to, what I'm trying to say here, like, relate to each other on said thing.
Yeah.
I think she struggled with that in trying to find her place because she didn't feel like she had anywhere to go when she was in Austria, but then she didn't have anywhere to go either when she was back in Iran. She just was kind of in limbo. Like, probably my least favorite character in one of my least favorite characters or individuals in this story is the guy that she met when she was in Austria, who was all about anarchy, death, and da da da
Oh, the
da.
guy with the spiky hair,
Yes. Oh,
the
he drove me
worst.
crazy.
I was so mad at that group because the
Oh,
whole
he drove
time
me
I'm like, are y'all
crazy.
gonna invite her to your house? You keep saying, "Oh, we have to be different, but we're gonna go skiing in the slopes."
Exactly.
You know,
And
no, like, are y'all gonna invite her? So I
yeah,
liked it when that one girl invited her, and I was just like, God, you guys are awful friends, like
but
awful friends.
it's the dichotomy of the friend groups. Like, she went to she went to Austria, she met these people, she gets along with them, whatever. But they talk so much of war and death, but they don't understand it because they've never experienced it. She goes home to Iran and her friends talk about the Western world and, hair and makeup and this, but they also have not experienced it. So it makes it so hard for her to feel like she belongs in anywhere because all these things that people are obsessed with that they are denied access to, she has experienced. And it's not what they think it is, it's their perception, but it's not reality. Which I think for her, as any human, that's a struggle. That's a struggle. You have this spiky headed boy running around thinking that he understood war and death. And I'm glad she called him out when, I forget how the conversation started, but she ended it with like, so my uncle gave his life, was it for nothing or for, because I think he felt like he called it like they're avoiding it or lazy. I forget the exact term that he used.
He said some trash
He
shit.
said something trash that pissed her off, and rightfully so. Because it's just like, I know people who have died for what they've believed. That's what it was. She had said, I know people who've died for what they believe in. And he made some trash comments back. I was like, that's wild. Yeah, yeah. Like, they're bored. I was like, thank you, Elizabeth. I was like, I couldn't remember what he said, but I felt for her. I would have been pissed. Like, you want so badly to be different, like you said, Bree, but they were all the same. They were all the same. Yeah, I'm going skiing. I'm going on this trip.
And I think to take it there, this, and I'm really not trying to say this to be uh anything, but it's just so typical of rich white kids to think like that. And that's
It's
what
so
I'm gonna
true.
say, and that's gonna
But
be
that's
it.
the truth. That's the truth. When you come from that place of privilege, you want so hard to be different, but you don't understand
A
anything.
goddamn thing.
Don't understand the thing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
I was just so annoyed. I was like, oh, you think because you cut your hair, you put on black eyeliner, and you're out here claiming to be emo, that now that you understand a struggle of what?
And then got upset at her because she was cutting the hair of the other students. Oh, I see you're associating with those peons. I said, you know what? Get rid of him. Throw the whole friend group away. The whole friend group is trash. Throw them all away. Throw them in the garbage can. Like I
I
said, I
was like,
cannot
I
believe.
remember writing in the margin like she need new friends. She need new friends because gosh. But I also have been, I'm sure we all have been in situations where we have made friends with people and we're like, these people are actually trash. These are not good people for me in the future. Exactly, exactly. Since we're coming up on an hour, what are some questions that some of y'all who read the book like asked yourself? Like, what was some more memorable parts of the book for you, or big takeaways, or all of those things?
Man, I don't know. I look, you want to read it again.
No, I was about to say that because I feel like because you read it a couple times,
Yeah.
some of the things you said tonight, I was like, oh my God, I don't even remember reading that part. So I
But
feel like I need to reread it so I can
yeah,
use
but
that.
I've read it multiple times. So that's kind of
Mhm.
a it's a I think I always pick up something new, and then this time I annotated it. Um and I definitely looked at some things a little differently than I probably have in previous reads. But yeah, I mean the story itself for me is kind of an inside out, like I know the story like the back of my hand type of situation.
Yeah. I also felt really bad for what was her name? I just realized it. Oh my god. She was the girl who like would babysit her.
Oh, the maid who
Yeah.
fell in love with the neighbor, and the neighbor was like, "Nah, I don't want to tie her. She's a maid."
Yep. That
Yeah,
that made me feel I was
yeah.
really sad about that. But I want to annotate it in a different color.
For the second time that you read it, yeah, I actually put so my tabs at the top here are actually points historical parts that I want to do further digging into and go back and look at it again. So, I mean, there were certain sections where she was talking about historical things that I was like, I would love to explore that more, like even understanding a little bit more about the war between Iraq and Iran or Iran.
Yeah, there was a
Oh,
part where like her friends were talking about folks and she was like I'm going to go and look them up.
mhm.
And I wanted to look them up. But there was also a part about Lenin, and I almost like threw up. And I'm trying to remember where. Did I talk to you about it? I was like, Lenin, really? Like, I was just so mad. And it's only because of my association with Lenin in Ukraine and his dirty
Mhm.
trash basket. I hope he's rotting in hell. Of what
That
he
was-
did. So I was just like, Lenin? Are we out here praising Lenin? Like I
Yeah,
almost fucking passed out. Like
yeah.
I was like, no, no.
Really, it is fascinating. Even her relationship with God later on is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. It is. It's a very fascinating relationship that she has. Everyone I know maybe do a your life, and how could I have it? But also, we wonder what can I do to assist people in those situations. I feel like it's taking a page out of her father's book is educating yourself. You know what I'm saying? Because when I think about it, and I know that I'm sure there's now with the internet and how interconnected we are globally, there's relief aids and stuff that people can assist with. But educating yourself, because living in the Western world, and I don't know if you do, I'm making this assumption. I'm speaking for me. I know that living in the Western world, when I turn on the news, I'm not, unless it is the US digging into it some way, somehow, or it's this big thing that the US is a part of, there's no working knowledge of what's going on globally. And at the same time, I don't think we have the capacity media wise to cover every single thing that's happening. But it's amazing at what the media does not cover that needs to have coverage. So I think that for me, when I think about how to assist, my first thing is thinking about her dad is just very critical thinking. You need to be able to think for yourself. You need to be educated. Like she always turned back to her education. Every time she goes to get back on the right path, she starts with her education and learning. And I think that that was something that was huge for me that I
And relatable.
and relatable. I which people this is why I don't like when people I only read to escape, and I'm like, like I don't know how you just. I mean, I do for some stuff that I do pick up. I read to escape, but there's also stuff that I read because I want to learn because it's not going to be taught to me. I'm not going to learn it in school. I'm not going to learn it from the news. So where else can I get it from?
Yeah, we definitely weren't taught about the Black Panther in my high school, so I'm definitely
Oh
doing
yeah, we weren't
kind of
taught
stuff
about the black.
now.
Yeah, we weren't talking about Black Panthers. That wasn't a, and that's on our
Mhm.
own soil. And there's certain things that the U.S. hides. I always use the Japanese internment camps as a huge example. We hide that piece of history from our
Mhm.
children,
Yep.
and there are people who are the same age as me and Bree who do to this day do not know that that was a thing that happened on U.S. soil because it's not taught.
Yeah. Yeah. Even the FBI links to Osage Indians, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
y'all need to
yeah,
talk
I need
about
to read that
y'all
book. I
things
need
and
to
what
read that
y'all
book.
did to them indigenous folks.
Jeez.
So
Talking about the
it's just
FBI
like
and FBI is sick, especially under what's his name?
even more relevant. People don't know about what really happened with Bush and Hurricane Katrina. I got stories for you. Out here, they lying on the internet. Out here,
Woo!
lions on the internet. I am a survivor of young Katrina. Not young, but old now, but still, like,
Yeah.
it's feeling like lies. So I feel we just, it's just the
It's
way
feeling like
we talk
somebody's
about
lying.
things is just, which always kills me. They're like 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. Mugs died.
Yeah.
What do you mean anniversary? I hate it when they use anniversary, but that's a whole
Whole
another
different. Yeah.
conversation.
How normal were Yes, it did.
Yeah,
That's such a good
super
point.
true.
And her parents talk about that. Like it's just you just get used to because didn't her mom say like why build everything back up? We all know it's just gonna get torn back down.
Man, it was
And they're
just
still
like
used
little
to it.
moments of good truth.
Let's see. I feel like I knew something that only as a blip in the history class or something where it wasn't difficult. That is just like a 2 week conversation. Yeah. I was horrified as my mother had to inform that girls when they yes. Because that's what happened to the guy who was making a passport for her uncle, another one of her uncles, not Anush, another uncle, was
Hmm.
supposed to make a passport for him to get to the US to have heart surgery. And the guy who was making the passport was was hiding a communist, and she was spotted and they killed her. And I broke my heart too when her mother had to say and tell her, do you know what they do when they arrest women and they have to execute them and
Oh,
they're
that broke
virgins?
my heart. And
They
then
marry them.
send the family $300.
No, not even that much. It's five. It was the
Oh,
equivalent of $5 US.
$5 US. There we go. There we go. Wasn't
Yeah.
it 300 of theirs?
Yes, and it was
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
and it was the
okay,
equivalent
yeah.
of $5 US. I was like, "Bruh."
Damn.
That's the dowry that they pay.
Yeah, I said, damn, that is fucked up.
It's fucked up. It is. Yeah. Yeah. That is yeah. Okay. So my husband grew up in Iran during this time, and it's interesting to hear him speak of this time. Horrible events became normal. Yeah. The trauma.
It
It
is
was
trauma.
normal.
I mean, you normalize so many things, like in Ukraine, people were throwing grenades and things. There was just a lot of things happening while I lived there, and then everything was just normalized. And then this lady yesterday, when I was like going to the gym, was like, "Oh, did you hear about what's happening? You know, Ukraine is at war." And I was like, "It's been at war. The fact that nobody is realizing that it's been at war is what you think they were doing." Like, and people be like, I just don't think people understand there are different types of war. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's one of those things that, the war there became normalized at some point.
We talked about this. This was work related for me. We talked about this with Florida. Florida and Texas are probably the forerunners of or I say the front runners in
But what do you
saying
teach
that
about?
CRT is, but see, people don't know, and I'm not going to dive into this because we don't have that much time left, but
Yeah.
they use CRT as the guise for not wanting to teach true history. And they always say the winners of war, the winners of wars are the ones who write the history books. They
Yeah.
write the stories as they
Yeah.
want to write the stories, and
Yeah.
not the US is used to. And as a history major, like this was, I mean, this is my thing. It's what I got my undergrad degree in. It's amazing what kids are taught. When I was going through an internship, y'all, I had a teacher. I was teaching his class. It's a high school class. And he wanted me to teach his kids that the Civil War was not about slavery, but about the economy. And you 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 really have people who truly want to maintain the structures of power through history, which is why I always tell people learning history is so important, because if you don't, you will repeat it. You will make the same mistakes if you don't know the truth. So here you have a person in a position of power wanting to make sure that those powers that be maintain, and these kids are not taught the truth.
But
They're
I would argue, if not all,
Mhm.
majority of the US history is filled with the blood of BIPOC.
It
So
is.
so for so
It
so
is.
so there's a lot of BIPOC still living and thriving in this country. So you're saying their history and their loved ones and their ancestors aren't worth talking about,
Nope.
is how I
Nope.
put it. And also it's like, then what's uncomfortable? Like, then what's comfortable, I mean, to talk about? Then what do you talk about?
It's what makes white children feel uncomfortable. Let's be crystal clear here, and let's be honest. It's not about what makes children uncomfortable, because BIPOC children experience a level of discomfort from the day that they are born. Okay, they just are not aware of it, but they become aware of it very quickly. That's why when you have certain conversations, people say, when did you first become aware that you were racially different from other people? BIPOC children are going to tell you that they learn quicker than white children. It's not about making children uncomfortable, it's so that white children don't feel uncomfortable, because they feel like teaching white children the truth makes them feel as though they are being attacked for being white, and it has nothing to do with it. It has nothing. It's not about, if I tell you what white people were doing in 1650, that means that all white people are inherently evil,
But
or
I
that
think it's
because
important to teach children, the legacy of their ancestors and
But they need
understand
to
the privileges that you hold and the ways in which you perpetuate
they
them.
don't look at it that way though. They feel like by teaching that history, we are attempting to hold, or we're attempting to place blame on the children, which is not the case. It's that you have to recognize, like you said, you have to recognize that advantage. You're born into a privilege of being white. It doesn't make you a bad person. But when you don't acknowledge that privilege, that's when I look at you sideways. We all have privileges. We're all
And it's
privileged in
harmful.
certain ways.
It's
But
harmful.
it's harmful not to acknowledge that privilege. It doesn't make you a bad person to say that you have certain privileges. It only, for me, it becomes stupid harmful when you don't acknowledge that you have that privilege. And they don't want to acknowledge it because the status quo has worked best. The power structures, the systemic racism, the white supremacy, it's maintained when we don't have to acknowledge what has been done and what continues to happen. So I'm not, I mean, you look at who the governors are, Florida and Texas, y'all, please. Are we surprised? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I have a friend. Uh, I'm one of the only people she allow to babysit her kids because she's very protective of them. And they are white babies. One is 2, one is 4. The oldest one is 14. And let me tell you, they learn some stuff from class. Auntie Bree be like, we got to talk about that. This is what you don't do. This is how this is being seen. And the little 2-year-old got it. I'm talking about she got it. And they ain't around crying, they ain't falling apart. They just understand that there are different ways in which people operate in the world. And they're trying to figure it out. They see that I am clearly brown and they out here white. They ask questions like that. So why not provide a space as an adult who knows
Mhm.
things to give them the answers to their questions? I'm not setting them up for failure. I'm just having them understand and think critically of the world. That's I find nothing wrong with that. I find something wrong if I was like, "Oh, I ain't gonna say nothing. Whatever, you'll be okay. I want to talk to you about racism because it's uncomfortable." And it's like, no, I got those conversations at 4. I got those conversations very young, and I wasn't falling apart. I just understood the ways in which the world's work and how to navigate it.
Yeah.
And I think people just want their kids to just be, I don't even know. I don't want to come at folks' kids, but you know
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
But for me, it's
Filtered.
it's it's books like this that, because I'm never ever going to experience what she experienced. You know
Never.
what I'm saying? I'm never in my lifetime going to go to Iran. It's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? And we don't cover this information in any history class or on the news if it's not relevant to us about, something happening nuclear wise between us and Iran. You know what I'm saying? So for me, choosing works like this, and I always say, just kind of wrapping it up too, is that, like, this is why Bree and I made the decision to do this this book club of sorts, because, you know graphic novels are a great entry point for learning about a lot of things. Um, Especially if, like, reading this in prose as a nonfiction book,
Might be too.
it would have been harder. And I think,
And for a younger reader.
and yeah, this creates an ease of access for people to really learn about someone else's experience. Um, and I just can't for the life of me figure out why people hate graphic. Not only hate is a strong word, but people don't value them as much. When this is probably, when I say not even probably, it is my top out. See, it's kind of hard to go back and forth because They Called Us Enemy. If you've never read that, Bree.
I loved it.
Okay, I was about to
Okay, so
say.
this I'm gonna say what's my three top. This one, They Call Us Enemy, and The Best We Could Do. I just felt like the best we could do was
Yeah,
given. It
yeah,
gave, I don't received. And I
yeah,
also was reading it and I was like, the fucking US. Like even in this one, when they met,
yeah,
I was like, God, the US just can't mind
yeah,
their business and drink their water. Just can't mind their business and drink their water. And I said, God damn.
yeah. I just think that they're great entry points, and they're for consuming more nonfiction. They're great entry points for learning things outside of your experience. So, um, it's definitely this one, and They Called Us Enemy. I'm kind of torn in between the two of which one would be my top nonfiction, or, graphic nonfiction memoir, um, of all time. But I mean, they're both amazing, amazing books. Um, you're right, Shamla. Imperialism and colonialism did screw up the entire world.
The whole fucking world.
Yeah. Yep.
Just so
Yep.
much greed mixed in both of those.
Yeah. It's greed. It's money. It's definitely money. Um. But yes, I hope you all have enjoyed it. We are at an hour and 5 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Remember that next month we're taking a step back um, from nonfiction. We're diving back into fantasy
Far
and sci-fi,
sector.
and we're reading Far Sector by N.K. Jemisin. This is going to be interesting because Joe, who is the main character of Far Sector, is tied to a bigger event that's happening in DC, but Far Sector can be read as a standalone, so don't get intimidated about reading a DC comic next month. It's not, you won't be lost, you won't be confused, and I will be sure to provide some context for some things that happened within the DC universe for this, but you don't need that. So we will be having that discussion towards the end of February. I believe we already chose a date, Bree, but we will go back and talk about the date.
Like we chose a date.
Yeah, we did choose a date,
I,
but I
I,
can't remember what the date was. That's
me
all I'm like, let's
either.
talk about
I also will say if you want to read They Call Us Enemy, it is on
that. Hoopla.
Hoopla. That took too long to say.
It's all right. It's
Hoopla.
So yeah, so prepare yourself to read. Far Sector is a long one because I think it's somewhere in between 10 to 12 issues. So the bind up is over 300 pages, and that one is also available on Hoopla as well.
Yes, because I think we checked everything for these.
Yes, some of them were not available. We try to make sure most of them were available on Hoopla.
Yeah, and it's 12 issues, by the way.
Oh, it's 12 issues. Yeah, so it's a thick, it should be over 300 pages then, right?
I'm waiting for my internet to show up
I'm done.
so I can give
Yeah.
you that answer because the internet said I'm gonna head out.
The year-long schedule, Jessica, is not in the Discord. It's just on our announcement videos. But we can add it to, because I think I have a graphic for it. Um I could add it to the Discord if necessary, if that is a request. If you aren't part of
312 pages. You're right.
Okay. If you're not a part of the Discord, um yeah, Alicia, if you bought the bind up of Far Sector, that's all 12 issues. Um if you aren't in the Discord, Bree did share that link. So go ahead and hop in the Discord because we're going to probably, I'll either ask tomorrow or Friday about a good date and time for us to stream and watch the movie adaptation of Persepolis, which is really, really great. It's in French. If you're looking to read more translated works this year, this was translated, by the way. This was not originally written in English. Um, the movie itself is in French, English subtitles. It's really, really good to see all of it come to life. It's all in black and white and it's cartoon. One of my favorite movies, one of my favorite foreign films of all time. Um, I absolutely loved it. So Okay.
I,
It'd be
I did
helpful for
put
planning.
I put the link of the Discord again, and Ulysses is right. I did put like detailed in my description of my
Thank you very
video.
I'm too lazy for that. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I'm too lazy
I
to do all
did
of that.
put a
That's extra.
detailed list in my
Yeah, no.
um in my announcement video on my channel. Let me get a link to that for y'all before we head out. Yeah, I guess the internet said it's not working for me on my
Do you
phone.
need me to do it?
Oh no, on my phone.
Oh, your
It's just
phone.
like,
Oh.
but it's okay because there's so many people who tried to call me today and nothing went through. So I don't even know what's going on with my phone. But it said it's gonna head out. So I guess what we gotta do. All right. So now I'm going to the page so I can copy here. Okay, I'm trying to find. All right. Yes. So I put the link to my video so you can just go in there, and in the description box I wrote in just detailed of like what's happening.
Mhm.
So we have I put in everything until November.
Which is our I think November what is November? What was the pick for November?
A Girl Called Echo Volume 1 through 4.
Okay.
But you said there might be another volume to Lock and Key, so I'll have to change
No,
that.
not Lock and Key. Lock and Key is 6.
Oh, it's just 6.
Something is
Well,
killing the children will be 4 by the time
okay,
we
there
get
we
to it.
go.
Well, it may be 5. Well, what month is something is killing the children? What month is that?
That's July.
We're at volume 4 right now. We may get another volume of something is killing the children
Okay.
by July, but we may just need to stick to 4 volumes because I think 5 will be pushing. It's too much to do 5.
Okay. And if you want to buy them, I do have a bookshop link with most of the comics in there. And it's affiliated if you wanted to use that as well. So there y'all go.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Hopefully we will see y'all in the Discord, or we will see you at the next live show discussion, which will be at the end, towards the end, or at the end of next month.
Some things killing their children is a bit scary.
It's graphic.
Yeah.
No
No chaser.
no chaser. It is graphic. It's great though. It's James Tynion.
He has a
I do. He's an
bone.
amazing man. So yeah, it is horror based. We have a couple of horror things going on, like Lock and Key is horror as well. But yeah. All right, y'all. Have a good night.
Bye, y'all.